everyone. I'm Lauren Van Hamert from Beltline to Broadway, and I am here with the amazingly talented Noelle Azarelo, who had this brilliant idea to start a theater company during a pandemic, and we're going to talk to her all about that.
As one does.
as one does when they fall on their head and have nothing to do and they're isolated at home. And I'm very excited to talk about this next production you have coming up later this week, opening this week.
Yep, opening tomorrow.
Yes, it sounds amazing. So let's talk about Brave New Classics for a second. What was the impetus for starting a new theater company at this time?
We pretty much had it in one. We were several months into the pandemic, and I had an impulse. You know, I'm impulsive sometimes, as you might have guessed. And I was working from home, and I was looking at some old plays, and I was like, man, this play is really cool. And it went from, man, this play's really cool, to I'm going to submit it for the Women's Theater Festival Fringe in about 45 minutes. And by the end of the day, I had cast it, and it was ready to go. And that sort of served as the proof of concept. And then in the fall, we did staged readings of several other plays that were underserved. You know, there's this whole amazing, incredible canon of classical theater. And I love Shakespeare. But there's a lot of other people that we can do. So we've really been focused on female playwrights of color. We did one that was an immigrant playwright. You know, we've really been looking at the people who don't get done nearly as often. And I think that a large part of why some of the classics are the classics and other things are forgotten is because the people deciding what's a classic does tend to be middle-aged white men. So
you think? Yes, I do. Yes, I totally agree. And I love that you are resurrecting these works because they seem to really be resonating with what's happening right now. So it's kind of crazy to me, but in watching the last series of plays, A Little Radical, works by Alex Gerstenberg, it just felt very relevant, a lot of those vignettes. So in curating what you're going to produce, how are you selecting the pieces?
Largely, I'm picking things. So I kind of have curated a list of stuff like, here's what we should look at. And a lot of that is stuff that I haven't necessarily had the time to get to the nitty gritty, but on the surface level, it speaks to me in some way. And then from there, you know, I've had different colleagues and collaborators direct things, and I kind of let people pick what they're going to direct. And, you know, people have found stuff that's not on that short list that speaks to them, but just looking for stuff that I feel feels timely and that feels like it's still got something to say 100, 200, 400 years later. And things, too, that I think either we can do something because it's virtual that we wouldn't be able to do on stage, or things that I think doing it streaming adds a new level to the message of the play.
So let's say you are still in tech. You're in tech week, even though it's virtual, even though it's kind of being streamed. So that's why we're having some of the audio.
Yeah, my cast is in final dress right now. It is one of the more technically ambitious shows we've done. There's a lot of entrances and exits, and there's a very large cast. So it's a little more ambitious than some of those things we've done previously, but what's the fun in not being a little more ambitious every time?
Absolutely. Well, and what I loved about the last series of plays that you filmed is that the technical aspect was really on point, on par with a lot of, I would venture to say, more established theater companies who have ventured into the virtual realm as well. So talk to me about the technical elements. Who on your team has the technical know-how to figure this stuff out?
Yeah, I've been really fortunate to have several amazing collaborators who have come in, you know, already knowing what they're doing. You know, Mickey Marvel has been involved. Pim Violet has been involved. So we've had some people there. My husband did a lot of A Little Radical. He just sort of thought like, you know, this is pretty interesting. I'd like to learn more about this and pick some things up. So he did the streaming for Second Shepherd's play. And he did a good deal of the videoing and editing of A Little Radical. He did the editing for Overtones, which was quite a challenge. And he's also our tech guy for Sex.
I love that.
Me too.
It's a family affair.
It is. He could not be more supportive of my Impulse theater company. So it's amazing.
Now, is he a theater person or no?
He will tell you no. But here he is right now playing tech director / streaming tech for, you know, like his 5th play.
Yeah. So we're gonna adopt him as a theater person. We won't even tell him. We'll just
That's how it works. Yeah, we just volunteer him sometimes.
It's funny. My husband is not. He is not a theater person. He is an engineer. But I've been making these crazy reels and trying to change up my social media game a little bit. And the other night he was like, I have some ideas for some reels. I was like, oh, I see. You're going to start producing now.
I love it. And Jim's also I've been doing a series of cocktail videos for Sex. And he's been doing all of the editing of those and helping me with those, which is pretty rad.
We're going to talk about the cocktails in a second. I'm very excited about that. But let's talk about Sex by Mae West.
Yeah.
This is such an interesting piece to me because the first time I heard about this piece, I was interviewing Tim Locklear from Interact, and we were talking about plays that push the envelope, LGBTQ plays, and on his list was Sex, which I had never heard of.
Sorry, Tim, I stole it. I didn't know.
So can you share a little bit of the backstory of this play? Because when it was initially produced in 1926, it was quite the scandal.
It was, yeah. So it came out in April of 1926 and was utterly panned. All of the critical reviews were that it was insipid and it was obscene and it was poorly written and poorly acted and it was terrible. But it played for 375 performances. So it was this huge smash. Nothing else on Broadway at the time came even close to selling the kind of tickets it did. But then after almost a year of it running, she and the whole company were arrested for obscenity. So the tea there is that her next play that she was planning to put out was even racier. Not that Sex is actually even racy for the times, but the next play, The Drag, was going to be pushing the envelope even further, and they wanted to shut that one down before it got going. So The Drag never did open on Broadway. Hey, Tim, The Drag would be a great one for NRACT.
Yes, Tim, note to self. So I feel like Mae West was just, it's funny. I interviewed Erin Sullivan recently, not recently, but last 2 years ago when she did her Marilyn Monroe cabaret. And Marilyn was one of those icons that really was ahead of her time. She was smart. She was a businesswoman. And Mae West also just so ahead of her time in digging into this play and learning more about her. Anything about her that surprised you?
Well, this play was her first real big starring role on Broadway. She wrote it herself. She produced it herself. And this was the thing. This was before she was a household name. This is the play that made her famous. So she wrote several plays to be starring vehicles for herself. Get it, girl. And then she got her Hollywood contract at the age of 40, which for that time was quite old. You know, they were all these 18-year-old ingenues. She actually gave Cary Grant one of his first big main movie roles too. So she was very much her first show in Hollywood. She asked if she could rewrite her scenes. She's got some balls. I love it. And they let her.
I love that so much because I think we compartmentalize how we see some of these icons in our heads, not realizing truly the path they paved. For women, for feminists, for theater, for art. So I love that you're putting the spotlight back on this.
Yeah,
Is there some gender casting in this as well?
Yes. We did all of the casting in I don't want to say gender blind, I guess gender conscious. So some of the roles that are written as male are played by a male, or we do have some that are played by male. We only have one man on the show. We have some that are played by a female, and we've changed the gender to be a female. There's other characters that are entirely gender neutral. There's no, pronoun ever given for them. So it's a moot point. And then there's other characters that are played by a female, and they're a male character, but we're not trying to do like male drag. We just exist in a world where gender identity is decided upon or assigned in a different manner, and that person just is a man. They say they're a man, they're a man. So we're kind of living in a complex gender situation for the show. But I think it brings some really interesting light too, because ordinarily, if you cast it traditionally, it very much is a show with a leading lady and a whole bunch of men around her. And I think it really gives the more agency to all of the female characters being surrounded by other women in a way. And also, I think that we're watching a play set in 1926 on our computer. We can just suspend our disbelief and pick the best actor for the role regardless of gender.
I love that. Yes. And 2021. So
exactly.
What did you learn from the first? I guess you've done 3 productions now. Is this the 4th one?
This is our, if you count He and She for Fringe, that's our 4th full production, and then we had the 3 readings.
So what did you learn doing the other full productions that you're able to evolve? How has the company evolved, and what have you learned from the last few that you're able to bring to this production?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of stuff that for the first ones we really had to experiment to play with, especially things like, it's important to me that we don't get that just humans in boxes that don't feel like they're integrated together in the same space. So it was a lot of experimentation on some of the early shows with things like how to pass props and do that. And now all of that stuff is just sort of second nature. And it's kind of fun to see that we don't have to really spend a lot of time blocking anymore. It's just sort of like, okay, here, pass that. And it works. So it's been really interesting. I think that one of the biggest things is that so many actors are so much more accustomed to performing in the virtual space now. So a lot of stuff that we really had to stop and figure out, like, should we look at, should I look here to talk to you? Should I look here to talk to you? There's a lot of that we have been able to not have to spend as much time in rehearsal. So we really can spend more time with the meat of the text.
So what has being an actor and performer taught you about producing and vice versa? Because, now you are a producer.
Yeah, I think that as an actor, I always did have my eye on the bigger picture and which are the details that really serve the production. And I think that all of that acting experience in those shows and kind of continually being aware of that has really helped me to pick what details are really important to focus on and which things help tell our story and what stuff really doesn't matter and you should let it go. So I think really learning to not be a control freak about the stuff that doesn't matter, but focus on it.
And I hope as we, venture into post-COVID live performance, that we do see more and more of these older works, public domain works, resurrect some of the so-called classics that are outside of the Shakespeare canon. I hope we see more of that. And I think we will, because if this streaming period of time has taught us anything, it's that licensing is very tricky. So it's crazy. You mentioned you've been crafting a series of cocktails leading up to the premiere of this play. Your dog starred in the one a couple days ago or yesterday, which I loved, Clara. So such a fantastic marketing strategy to get people pumped up. Might you have a cocktail for us?
Fancy that I do. I'm going to make the Verdant Lady tonight. I think we can all agree that the Raleigh art scene is quite verdant and that Lauren is a very important part of that. So that's what I'm going to make for her tonight. So
this is the first. In all these videos, no one has made a drink inspired by this.
I'm going to start with 1.5 ounces of Conniption American Dry Gin. It is from Durham Distillery, so it is one of my favorite local gins. They do a fantastic tour. They have got a terrific bar below the distillery. So if that is anyone's kind of
Are they the ones making hand sanitizer during this pandemic? A friend of mine had their hand sanitizer, the spray, and I loved it. I was like, oh, yes, spray.
You had it too. I'm going to do 1/2 ounce of fresh squeezed lime juice. A 1/4 ounce of simple syrup. Now, simple syrup is actually incredibly easy to make. They sell it in the store for, very overpriced. But all you have to do is heat up equal parts of sugar and water until the sugar dissolves and you have homemade simple syrup. And then lastly, we are doing a bar spoon of green chartreuse. And most importantly, this calls for some fresh herbs in it. So it calls just for mint, but I always use both mint and basil. These are from my garden. You're going to use about 4 leaves of each. And now it's about to get loud because I'm going to shake it up. I'm going to put a towel on it to hopefully make it a little quieter.
I love this so much. I'm excited.
And we're going to pour into, technically it calls for a coupe, but these are my favorite glasses. So do as I say, not as I do. And here we have a Verdant Lady.
Thank you. A drink for Beltline to Broadway. I love that. And we'll post the recipe. I feel like I have to now post the recipe because people.
Yeah, I'll put it in the comments after the chat.
I love that. That'll be wonderful. So, and people can watch all of the video cocktails inspired by the script, inspired by the characters. How does it taste? I'm sure it's
delicious. It's one of my favorite cocktails. The basil and the mint are very fresh and they're super great against the gin.
It sounds like a good summer drink, so I like that with the herbs. As theaters begin to reopen, what is your vision for the future of Brave New Classics?
That is a great question. I don't know yet. I certainly am not planning on just not doing stuff anymore, but hey, if anyone's looking for a collaboration with people doing really cool old plays. But yeah, I'd really love to do maybe some site-specific things, shows that take place maybe in a house, do it in a space, and do a combination of a small audience and streaming. I'm hoping that people do embrace streaming continually to some extent after this, because man, do I love casting the show to my television, and I can sit on my sofa with my dogs and watch a play.
Yes.
I really hope we still have that.
And I do think that it makes theater accessible in a way that maybe theater wasn't accessible before. So I love that. So how can people watch this production? Ticketing is free, but you do encourage tips for the performers. So tell people how to watch this.
Yeah, it is on our Twitch channel. So that is twitch.tv, brave_new_classics. You can also find our Twitch channel, a link to it on our Facebook page, we're facebook.com/bravenewclassics. And all of the cocktail videos are there. We've got some really nice little teaser trailers for sex up there. And all of that is also on our YouTube.
And the great thing about Twitch is about casting to television. If you have Amazon Prime, you can connect your Twitch to Amazon Prime, one account, right, to your Amazon Prime, and then stream. I've watched Twitch on my television through Prime. So
I'm going to be honest, the way I watch it through my television is going, hey, honey, can you make the play go on the TV? And then he does.
Okay, so we're all going to do that for Noelle's husband. Now we're going to be like, honey, where is he?
TV is actually a computer.
But I think it has something to do with Amazon Prime. I will ask Mickey next time I talk to her. And so what is next after sex? Because you're putting out several productions, it seems like every other month, every 2 months.
We have a June one that is to be announced. That's going to be directed by John Paul Middlesworth. And then we are in the process of planning something for summer and something for early fall. But those are all still kind of in early planning stages at this point. But yeah, the June one, we are hopeful to be able to do it with the actors in space together. And it would be streamed as opposed to entirely virtual based on vaccine things and all of that, the safety of our actors. And the summer, we are planning on a mix of actors performing together and actors performing from their location. And then by the fall, we are planning to do entirely, the show we're looking at has a slightly larger cast, and they're planning to all be in the same space. So that's going to be ambitious, and we might be taking over my house for a month. So thanks, honey.
See, behind every good artist is a good man who allows her to have full reign of the house. So at least that's the way it is in my house. So, but this has been so much fun. I cannot wait to see the production. I was so impressed with the last production, the production values. And I really think Brave New Classics is a company to watch moving forward, because the work is really interesting and it's not work we've seen on main stages. So
yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get to do it on some main stages too in the future. We'll see.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for this. And I will let you get back to tech. I know tech week, tech rehearsals are crazy, but thank you for making me a drink. And I don't have a drink. I feel like James Bond or something. I mean, this is great. So thank you so much. And thank you everyone for tuning in. And I will see you at the theater. I'll see you this weekend for sure online.